Hello, folks. Welcome to another live poetry reading. Tonight we got four poets and one prose writer. We have Deb Kellogg, Mike Justak, Tony Plocido, Kelly Lasche, and Vincent Sharma. I'm going to start off with a couple of poems as usual. When roses are inappropriate, rules are rules. You follow the white lines on the road as cars pass by. You are left walking, a carnation wind blown just beyond your fingertips. This next poem is one of my poems that I written after I found out I was diagnosed with Parkinson's. It's called Support Group. It's a villanelle. To be slightly in denial is okay. A person needs a nugget of confidence to keep on fighting through the day. Never mind all the things they say. Those who fail to understand your stance, to be slightly in denial is okay. Some games you no longer can play, but that's no reason to quit the dance. Keep fighting through the day. Do what you can while you may. Don't be afraid to take a chance. To be slightly in denial is okay. There is no reason for dismay. Your mind must create a defense to keep on fighting through the day. A progression we work to delay as we hope to keep our independence. To be slightly in denial is okay. To keep on fighting through the day. Our first reader is Deb Kellogg. She grew up in Minneapolis, went off to the wilds of Iowa for college, then even further afield to Germany to study, live, and fall in love. She's the entire German department at Normandale Community College, but pinch hits in the English department when needed. When talking about her writing, she says, I write about the small, ordinary things in life that brings us pleasure, annoyance, pain, and joy. Take it away, Deb.
Thank you. Tonight I'm going to be reading three poems. Two are in a narrative style, which I know tends to be old-fashioned. We think of that as going along with like Ralph Waldo Emerson or especially Longfellow. But narrative poetry does still have a place and can serve some very important functions. So the first one that I'm going to be sharing tonight is, let me pull it up here. Okay. All right. Unfortunately, as in my classes, it seems like you have to click 47 times before you find what you're looking for. All right, this first one is called Ashes of Roses. My grandmother called it Ashes of Roses. This soft, quiet breath of almost pink with shadows of blue and gray. It's a wistful color, sad and sentimental, that pairs well with charcoal and ivory. A color of autumn and the hair of old women. A color of loss and the sighs of memory. Green, on the other hand, is a color vibrant with life and longing, more passionate than red and more fiery than orange. Green is the color of the island where I first met you. I came on wings of silver out of the distant north, hungry for sun, warmth, and the kiss of sweat on winter-pale skin. You met me with open arms, enfolding me in brown and turquoise flames. You showed me where the black orchid grows, the sun burned gold in a sky of azure, then. Under swaying palms, you wooed me. In tropical waters, we made love and danced, naked and alone, in slow, sinuous movement through the blood-warm night, under a lambent moon. The juice of a mango you licked from my fingers. Where are they now, these sweet, fragrant dreams? Gone, fluttering ghosts, wraiths of all that was and might have been, ashes of roses. You have become a dot on the map, and I am an afterthought, another line on your list of to-dos. Sweet Prince, the affairs of state weigh heavy on your shoulders, and you are burdened with responsibility. I understand this, but will you not let me lighten your load? Will you not come again into my arms and let me refresh you with my love? Do you even remember that I'm still here? I, too, am becoming a ghost, fading into memory, footprints in the sand, washed away by the sea. You have said, I hold your heart, but what have you done with mine? Dearest ruler of this jeweled isle, I will leave this verdant paradise and return to my mountain valley, to cathedral bells and the voices of my people. But I do not know when I will again be able to bear the sight of white sand beaches or the sound of calypso. The second one that I'm reading tonight is also narrative, but this is of a very different experience that I had as a much younger person many years ago. So let's take it away here. Hopefully everybody knows what Turkish delight is, correct? If you don't know what Turkish delight is, it happens to be a sweet covered in powdered sugar and things like that. Well, this one is called No Turkish Delight, but Turkish is in reference to something else. So here we go. No Turkish Delight. It had been a long, hot afternoon and too much red wine after jouncing along the dusty back roads of Bordeaux on the back of a 1972 Vespa. The call of nature was becoming insistent. Philippe obligingly stopped at the next bend in the road and headed for the bushes, expecting me to follow. I watched his receding back and balked. I wasn't going to squat in the dirt like some aboriginal and think higher thoughts while watering the local flora. I'd been better brought up than that. Besides, he had certain physical advantages that I didn't. I'd certainly appreciated them last night. Now they just annoyed me. Philippe came back a few minutes later and looked at me questioningly, then shrugged after my brief explanation. We saddled up again. He far more comfortable than I, and rode at least 40 miles to the next town, hitting every rock and hole in the road en route. At the local cafe, he ordered coffee while I asked in my best schoolbook French where the ladies' room was. I got a quizzical quirk of the eyebrow from the waiter before Philippe used a word I didn't recognize. They both laughed. The waiter spoke in rapid-fire French, then jerked his thumb toward the back of the cafe. I bolted to the cackle of more male jocularity. Bursting through the blue door at the end of the hall, my bursting bladder got the shock of its well-brought-up, porcelain-lined suburban life. No toilet. Only a square of dingy cracked tile sloping down to an open drain with 2 cement footprints on either side of it. And no toilet paper. For a millisecond, I considered leaving, but my bladder screamed that I'd regret it if I tried. So I whipped off my skin-tight jeans faster than a pole dancer in Vegas, carefully stepped onto the 2 footprints, and squatted like an aboriginal thinking higher thoughts. Niagara Falls had nothing on me for the next few seconds of blissful contemplation of the grimy wall. Once my primordial urge had been satisfied, I found a partial roll of pink toilet paper with the consistency of wet cardboard stuck on a peg jutting out at a sharp angle from the wall. The angle reminded me of Philippe's physical advantages, but I was in a much more generous and forgiving mood now. I daydreamed about pegs and jutting angles while trying to ignore the scoring the paper was giving my tenderer parts. Philippe might have to apply first aid to me tonight. Now that I was ready to resume a standing position, I noticed a chain hanging from the ceiling. And being a curious, adventurous person, now that my bladder was happy again, I pulled it. Sheets of water blasted from the lipped margin of the square, spraying my legs and rolling over my shoes like a tsunami. I leaped up, squawking like a pheasant, executed a move I hadn't done since 9th grade ballet, and somehow landed on my feet outside the square of drench. Miraculously, my inside-out jeans with my lacy underwear pressed on them like a preserved butterfly had escaped the dousing. The wad of used toilet paper was gone. So were about 12 shades of color from the tiles. I slithered back into my jeans and with head high sauntered back into the cafe, with shoes squelching and trailing a slimy chain of damp footprints like a string of cheap plastic beads, while ignoring the guffaws of both Philippe and the waiter when they saw me. I primly seated myself at the table and contemplated satisfying revenge on Philippe and his wall-pegged angle while they sagged with laughter. He didn't notice me surreptitiously washing my fingers in his coffee. Next time, I'm heading for the bushes. Again, these are life experiences. And finally, the last one, I do write rhyming poetry as well. I've been compared to Ogden Nash and things like that. So let's see what I can do with this last one. One moment, please. Thank you. All right, here we go. Sickness. The day is fine and cheerful. Sunlight sparkles on the snow. I should be up a-doing, but I have been laid low. It came home with my daughter like a lost and lonely kitten. It then made friends with each of us until we all were smitten. Our domicile's now filled with pain, with fever, coughs, and wheezes, and no one says Gesundheit when another of us sneezes. I'm plague-ridden and infected. I breathe contagion in the air. I run my leprous fingers through my filthy matted hair. And yet I stagger bravely on, attending to the others. I have no choice. It is my lot, because I am the mother. And thank you very much. I cede to the next person.
Thanks, Deb. That was fun. Our next reader is Vincent Sharma, who fell in love with narrative poetry after reading The Rime of the Ancient Mariner in middle school. So he's a good follow-up to Deb. He has been using poetry to tell stories ever since. Take it away, Vincent.
Thank you, Ron. So I was reading "'Twas the Night Before Christmas" the other day, and I always thought to myself, what would it be like if The Night Before Christmas was based in Minnesota? So I've written a poem called "'Twas the Night Before Christmas in Minnesota." 'Twas the night before Christmas, and in the Anderson house, Ole turned to Lena and said to his spouse, "Oh, Lena, there's a storm brewing outside. Looks like old Santa's in for a ride." "Oh, yeah," said Lena, looking up from her knitting. "Looks like a blizzard from where I've been sitting." They went back to listening to the Prairie House show when the radio interrupted. "Look out for the snow. According to the radar that we have been seeing, visibility is 0, though it makes for good skiing. For tonight, just sit tight, or your car will get tossed. We feel sorry for Santa. He might just get lost." Just then they heard a knock from outside. Uncle Sven had shown up, dragging something inside. He was wearing camouflage from his head to his toe, with his hunting rifle and a carcass in tow. Oof da, the snow! I couldn't even see, but I still nabbed this deer we can now fricassee. Ole jumped to his feet from his old rocking chair, thinking thoughts of venison as he brushed back his hair. It was Lena that peered and saw something queer. "That's the first time I've seen a red nose on a deer." In the silence that followed, their faces all fell, because then Ole noticed the deer's jingle bells. "Oh, Sven, do you see just what you have done? You blew away Rudolph with your old hunting gun." In the ensuing chaos and heated debate over what to do next as they pondered their fate, all stopped when they heard a terrible blow as black boots kicked the door and it opened to show Santa standing there in a terrible mood. "You fiend, you killed Rudolph. Now what will I do? The children need toys and Rudolph's my lead. How will I deliver the toys the kids need?" Sven cried out in grief and begged on his knees, "I'm sorry, Santa, to St. Olaf I plead. How can I fix Christmas? What all can I do?" Santa then walked outside, and Sven followed too. As minutes flew by and then turned into hours, Ole and Lena wondered if Sven had the power to save Christmas somehow. What could he muster? A sleigh needs reindeer, not a snowblind hunter. Again, they interrupted the Prairie House show. A voice said proudly on that old radio, "Christmas is saved. The toys are all here. Santa's sleigh is flying through the air with his deer." Ole and Lena jumped up, showing no fear, to see just what had saved Christmas this year. And off in the distance, a gravity defying 8 tiny reindeer, and at the lead flying was a tiny snowmobile with Sven hanging on, and a headlight so bright it looked like the dawn. The headlight shone like a lighthouse's beam, so bright it lit up the snow-covered scene. From rooftop to rooftop, Santa flew like a kite, delivering his toys while Sven hung on for dear life. Throughout the long night, Santa delivered his toys to house after house of good girls and boys. The next morning came a knock at that old wooden door, and when it flew open, Sven collapsed on the floor. They gave him some eggnog, and soon he revived. They all were so glad that he had survived. And what if Rudolph, that small reindeer pup, Sven took him away, but he later showed up. At the state fair where he currently resides, Sven's taxidermy won him first prize. And that, dear reader, is what saved Christmas that year, a Minnesota hunter and 8 flying deer. That was my only poem. You can take it away, Ron.
Thank you, Vincent. Enjoyed it. Next up, we have Mike Justak, who wrote a memoir called Puck Parkinson's. Mike is an inspiring public figure. Despite retiring on disability, he founded the Mike Justak Foundation for Parkinson's Disease and has served as its president and executive director. With unwavering resilience, Mike draws strength from his 40-year marriage, 4 children, and 5 grandchildren. He showcases his creativity through PD skimmers and enchanting holiday light shows synchronized to music, earning the prestigious Best in the Twin Cities title for multiple years. Recognized with the Paul M. Silverstein Award, Mike's remarkable dedication to the greater Midwest Parkinson's community continues to inspire countless others. Take it away, Mike.
Hey, thanks, Ron. As you said, I'm going to be reading from my new novel, my first attempt at writing, called Puck Parkinson's. And the chapter I'm going to start you off with tonight is called Clap, Christmas Light Addiction Problem. I opened my eyes and bam, it was 2:07 a.m. No doubt about it, I was awake. It would soon be 2010, a new decade. Michael J. Fox would close his fundraiser promos with, "Let's cure Parkinson's within a decade." I was positive I was awake. Trouble sleeping is another one of those symptoms you don't hear much about with Parkinson's. I went downstairs and turned on the TV. I thought maybe it'd be nice to find a video of some Christmas lights. So I searched YouTube and found a video with Trans-Siberian Orchestra playing one of their songs, and they were synced perfectly to the lights on the house, blinking and flashing right with every beat of the music. Cool, I thought. There was All I Want for Christmas and Jingle Bells, Carol of the Bells, Mannheim Steamroller, Mariah Carey, The Muppets, Josh Groban. Then I clicked on the Amazing Grace video. This entire home was covered with lights. The lights flashed a single cover over the entire house, the yard, shrubs, trees, everything, red, green, white. The lights looked as if they were spinning around that tall tree. It was beautiful. And just over a minute, it was done. I stumbled onto the work of a lighting legend with that video, Richard Holdman's Utah home. There were thousands and thousands of lights. He created a unique star topper. It became known as the Holdman Star. There were 30, 50, and 100 count light strings. Each string was a single color. So to do red, green, clear, and blue, you needed 4 strings, 4 times the string width, 4 times the weight, 4 times the price, and 4 times the electrical load. But I had to learn more about this. So I downloaded the video and showed it to anyone who would view it. I was looking for opinions. I mean, all that work for one song. I was about to enter the bright and shiny world of a Christmas decorator, a light show guy. I studied up on all things light show, lights, controllers, channels, pigtails, zip ties, the portable hole, extension cords, and Renard. I did know a few things about electricity. Don't stick a screwdriver in the socket, stay away from puddles, the fuse box is in the garage. And I also learned that if you saw snow melting by your extension cords, that's not good. I jumped in and purchased a pre-assembled controller. It was a brand new Delight 16. She was beautiful. She even had pigtails. Now I must find the software to operate it. I think it was called Vixen. Whoa, better be careful when typing Vixen in a search box. I mean, you get something totally different than software. What was left? I had a problem. Where do you get Christmas lights in June? How would I know how many to get? What should I put them on? How would I get the cords under the sidewalk? Better yet, how would I get them out of the garage? I wonder if there was a blog out there somewhere. As we moved into September, questions had answers, but my to-do list was growing. I was going to do a live show versus a single tree internet only show. I would use 7 fresh cut trees from the Home Depot, and I'd do my setup Thanksgiving week. I would do a press release the week before Thanksgiving. I would need about 8,000 lights and 16 extension cords. I would need voiceovers. I need to test the controller. I was told to watch my amps on each circuit. What's an amp? September moved into October. Complicating matters was that I could only do the physical parts of the show on weekends, as I was commuting to and from Orlando. There were 5 weeks until the first show now. I conducted my first full outdoor test. I used my high kitchen chairs as my trees. My daughter was here with the grandkids. I hit the start button, walked out of the garage, and as I stepped out of the garage, I heard, "Let's get ready to rumble." The lights were alternating, left side, right side, in perfect sync with the beat. My daughter and her kids burst out laughing. Perfect reaction. Before I knew it, the time for setup had arrived. Snow had entered the picture. It was more difficult, but I forged ahead. The trees looked great. The lights were spectacular. It was fun to watch cars drive up and stay. The Minneapolis Star Tribune did a cover story on my display. Plymouth Cable News sent out a reporter to get some behind-the-scenes coverage. And on Christmas Eve, I received a call from a reporter from WCCO TV who wanted to feature my story and the display on the evening newscast. He spent 2 hours with me. The reporter's story ran on the 6 and 10 o'clock news slots. I had done it. This guy, who only a few years earlier didn't even want to tell his family he had Parkinson's, now literally was announcing to the entire world he had a disease. However, this was just the beginning. The reporter did take one liberty. He told the world that next year's display would be bigger and better. Trust no one. I was still a commuter to my Orlando office. The weekly flights had begun to extract a toll on my body. Worse yet, the fatigue I was suffering from began to take a toll on my accuracy. Numbers presented that were wrong and couldn't be trusted were useless. As 2012 drew to a close, I made a decision to accept my fate. And after consulting with my family, neurologist, and employer, I retired on disability on December 31st, 2012. With my retirement, I started the process of completing forms. Then came my first surprise. Insurance companies lie. They use delay tactics, and they try to change the rules before they send you your check. They knew once they accepted my diagnosis, they would have to pay me for 10 years. That total would be $231,600. Now, that sounds like I should fly off to Tahiti, but that amount still would only equal 65% of my pre-disability salary when it was combined with my Social Security. I would not receive a lump sum, but monthly payments until I was 65. Denied. That was the first response to the submission of my claim with the private carrier. They requested I supply additional documentation. They asked to see the acceptance letter that I received from the Social Security Administration. That was just plain wrong. I had a copy of the policy. Nowhere was it in print that letter was needed. The insurer knew A, it took 5 months for Social Security to review your claim, and B, the folks at SSA were just like the insurance people. They had a terrible track record of approving Parkinson's disability claims. In fact, the insurance company policy stated they would help me get my approval from SSA, not the other way around. It took a letter from a lawyer on his letterhead inquiring as to the location of the text requiring the SSA approval letter and pointing out that my application appeared to be in order, fulfilling all requirements. And bada boom, bada bing, just days later, I had a check in hand. Social Security was next. I researched Social Security Administration's Blue Book. This book was a definitive resource to define an ailment or illness to qualify for disability. The Parkinson's definition was short, barely 21 words and 2 paragraphs in length. The key for me was a requirement that 2 limbs needed to be affected by the disease. The letter from my neurologist would explain just that. I was down to the final step, the interview and exam by their in-house doctor. I refrained from taking my Parkinson's medication that day so there could be no doubt about my abilities. He gave the usual commands: twist hands at wrist, tap your feet on the floor, repeat the last 3 items in the list when I ask. Then a question took me by surprise. How far can you walk? I don't know. I guess a mile. A mile? Whoop, red alert, whoop, red alert, whoop, red alert. Wrong answer. Well, I mean, not very fast. I thought I had blown it, but I was approved. And that's where I'll leave you at the end of that chapter.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Tony Plocido. Tony is a writer from the Twin Cities in Minnesota. He has honed his craft both there and in Kansas City, Missouri, where he lived for almost 2 years. He has published 4 books of poetry, Sucker Punch Wisdom, co-written with Casey's own Jeremy O'Neill and William Peck on Write the Future Press, Aging and Other Side Projects, and Felt So Many Times. His latest book, The Conflict That Creates, was released on 8/18/21. Take it away, Tony.
Okay, hello. How's everybody doing? Not that you can answer. Anyway, okay, so I'll start older and go newer, I think. So the first thing is, I assume it can be heard. Okay, so I wanted to go out of my book here, Felt This So Many Times. This was my 3rd book. This is a poem called Standing in the Doorway. So here we are. No flames to fan and the cold night is setting in. Our belongings are being spliced together. Wires, the cables that used to conduct this electricity are being divided, frayed. There are sparks, but not of celebration. I used to celebrate my memories of you. I thought I was all in. I thought I was just you. I thought I was done worrying about tomorrow. I shouldn't think so much. It means I'm not paying attention. But I've paid for your attention. I have $10 left, my tank is empty, and I need bread. I feel sandwiched between your need to participate and your need to evacuate. But the indoor and the outdoor are the same door. It just comes down to your orientation. And I went to the orientation for the School of You. I studied the syllabus, mapped my classes, but my grades left something to be desired. Too much time and attention. I made the mistake of being your class clown, but you can't fuck funny. So funny's what fucked me. But when you would giggle, my insides would melt. I felt that laughter as oxygen. Breathing it in would make me dizzy. I would fall. Look up and find you've had enough. Enough time has passed. We tried to pull the cord over and over, but the engine wouldn't start. Again, we can't live our life parked in the shed, dead. So here we are, saying I love you for the last time. Okay, then from my book, The Conflict That Creates, this came out in August 2021. It's my most recent book, still available. You can find me on the internet. All right, this is the last poem in the book. It's called White Noise. It is, I mean, I wrote it after the George Floyd thing, but I wouldn't say it's about George Floyd. It just where my head was at after that all happened. So it's called White Noise. It's 11:37. It's close to midnight. The TV is on for noise, but it's white noise, but it's not white noise. It doesn't fade into the background as we drift to sleep. Shit. Maybe it is white noise. It will keep making itself known, periodically waking you up to tell you it's there in some suppressed, repressed, racist way. Racist people make me sick. I've made myself sick. I've raced people where the finish line had room for one, and I've made comments that were sharpened on the stones that were thrown in the past at people who passed by me on a lunch break or a funeral march. I don't know. I'm not without guilt. I'm guilty of hanging around. I'm not looking for a jury to hang me. I don't want to be a picture on your wall, the picture of found morality. I'm not that far along. Really. I have headphones on listening to black music so I don't hear the buzz jamming out as I work on projects that are apropos of nothing. Like myself, I'm still searching for parts to fix this machine, the one I was handed, the ones with hands and everything, deserving of barely any of it. What I deserve was probably given to me. I used it and threw it away, and I'm sure I missed the basket. It was balled up, and someone who wished they could have had a shred of that had the job of properly disposing of it. This planet is fucking stupid. I say that from a good place. It's fucking stupid. There are hundreds of miles of food growing in the ground, and there are people who fantasize about the last meal they ate because it was the last meal they ate, and it was days ago. People who cry at night because the daylight is where the scars are created and shown. Meanwhile, my white ass is ranting about how it sucks when your urologist is hot. Fuck. It's a whole thing that I have the privilege of thinking. I have many boxes checked for me every morning. Over there, wherever there is, someone is hurting because the few boxes they have are full of bullets in the form of talking points, having to say the same shit so that the great white earth doesn't forget that they need help. They're happy to help, but they need help. They need sunshine, shelter, and a lawn, just like me. They don't want a cross burning on that lawn, just like me, except I would think it was a prank or a mistake because my shadow doesn't know hate. It's black and abstract, like the way the world tries to categorize whole generations of people, when I'm a part of generations of people who owned people to make money that wasn't for the people. I can't really feel justice. I can't be in love with the status quo, especially when the status quo has never been fair. So I stand, white and ranting, because privilege catches ears where other hues are muted, pleading to nothing. Because if you're going to care, you already do. And if you have the right to be angry, you already are. The rest is the white noise that puts so many to sleep. Okay, let's see here. So the next two that I'm going to read are not published yet. The first one is because back in January, I was diagnosed with autism. So that explained a lot of stuff in my life. And this was me sort of going back over that, I guess. It's called processing. There wasn't a diagnosis for me. It was the 80s, where you opened the door and threw your kids outside to ride or hide or race the sun back home. Nobody knew I wasn't processing. In high school, when every class is hard, you find ways to make it easy. When the teacher said, "What's the square root of 81?" I was still wondering if I had ever seen a square-shaped root. I was still wondering if people thought there were about roots in math class. I was still wondering. And nobody knew I wasn't processing. And as an adult, in all of my relationships, there always came a moment where her emotions, valid as they are, simply caused me to shut down or shut off. I didn't understand the situation. I didn't know the questions to ask. I didn't fulfill their expectations. And nobody knew I wasn't processing. So now, damn near 50, in my everyday life, I have a diagnosis under my belt. I have an explanation, but I'm still saddened by misunderstandings. I'm still overthinking underwhelming situations. I'm still unfamiliar to my family, and this will continue to paint my soul a color that will always feel weird. It will always frustrate me to not have the answer, even though I know I'm not really processing. And in weird Zoom fashion, I will close out in this. It's so weird to just have. So I'm the host of Poets and Pints, blah, blah, blah. If you don't know Poets and Pints, look for it on Facebook. We're a monthly poetry show, and we used to do this Zooms type thing during the pandemic too. So I should be used to it, but it is weird. Just so sorry if I seem a little weird. Okay, so here's my last piece. It's called Feast. And away we go. Think of the best mistake you've ever made. Was it a person who finally turned over your engine, made you feel like a woman or a man or some other definition of a human being? Did they remind you that they were breathing, alive, like you were launched into space, the space between relationships filled with jet fuel, fire, and the thought that you may actually be touched again, maybe even twice? Maybe even that place between reason and responsibility, that place between festivities and fuck yeah! Probably for a while. Otherwise, why would you stay? Why would anyone stay? Why would you decide the lesson is worth the learning? Why would the earth keep turning? Why would you have anything ever to do with anyone ever? Love usually lacks logic. Some people fall in love with the wrong people sometimes. We're told stories of knowing when it's right. We're told stories of feeling it in your bones. Stories are fantasies, and fantasies are lies, and the truth is that someone will, at best, be good enough, kind enough, blind enough to your bullshit. We will lean on this for years, decades, even if this person has made a constant feast of your heart for years, decades. They will have no idea of this meal they've been consuming. They will wake up, peel back their blankets, drink coffee, turn on the shower to wash off yesterday, dressing something that makes them feel good, even if it physically hurts, go to work, go to happy hour, find another person, put a number in their phone. No one remembers numbers anymore. Call, plan a date, pretty themselves up, fight the urge to flee, date, smile, kiss, fuck, find love, find home, break up, break down, feel homeless, feel lost, feel quiet, cry, sleep, try again another day, just like you. At least, this is what you hope. I fear what's left of my heart is nothing more than an appetizer, a mere morsel. It won't satiate. That's a lot of words and metaphor to say that I miss you more than I'd like to. And that is my time. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Tony. Very powerful performance. Next up, we got Haley Lasche. She is the co-founder and co-editor of the Poetry Press Beauty School Editions and the founder, editor, and designer of the literary magazine Concision Poetry Journal. She teaches writing and literature courses at colleges and universities in and around St. Paul, Minnesota. She has 2 poetry chapbooks, Where It Leads and Blood and Survivor. One is her premier poetry collection. Take it away, Haley.
Thank you so much, Ron, and all the readers tonight. The range of voices in this reading is like pretty incredible, and I'm thinking a lot about how much humanity you were bringing to your poems, and how strange it feels for me now to read this book. So this is my poetry collection, one that was just released about a month ago. And there really aren't any people in it. So I'm just gonna dig in and then I'll talk as I go. Eyes close, snow blooms of a chasm. Eyes open, too small for aluminum bellies. Eyes close, the hunt of caw in the squall. Eyes open, the crumb-tripped cord exposure. Eyes close to the rustle battle melt. Eyes open to a fresh sage wound. Eyes open a silphium stage. Eyes close a poultice of frame wood. The ache of tender barley rusts on the stalk. Place valerians over tendon ice. Smell cinder and conifer clutched at owl's rotation. Another possum scream. Another dip beneath branch. Follow the hole to a feather of twigs, night made, asphalt cracking above this rich home. 8 trumpeter swans release snow from their gravity, and grave gravity, transfixing a wooden feather to behold a slightly varnished sky. The possum's eye has stopped blinking. For all it has seen, for all this salt. So I started working on this book-length poem in the summer of 2015. And I used to be a huge news junkie, and the way that the 2016 election, presidential election, was entering into the news cycle was so devastating to me and like traumatizing that I needed a break. I needed to step away from this human drama that was happening. And as I often do, I went to nature and just spent some time really looking at like, what are the relationships between these animals, these plants, this trash that we leave, this decomposing matter, periodic elements, everything that was around me that wasn't human. I really wanted to spend time and see what was happening, even though it was impacted by our human drama. And the more that I did that, the more I realized that the narrative that I was using to describe what was happening was inauthentic. So I began to question the way that I used narrative. I'm going to read a few more pages and then I'll talk some more about that. Vigil of frozen wood dropped against rain-dried glass. A smear of bolts, plastic wrap, watches emptiness of fire or scent of wood smoke. Sun-washed solution of maidenhair clinging the coiled screen seeds itself to pomegranate husk. Voluminous waste or beaver den, sharing whispers insulated against the sudden shift. The snow. The snow. The snow of small sounds flexed to breaking. Hoof print puddle hesitant when pressed. Sing of ice. Preserve muted sprinkle worn soft ears blaze against the white-lipped dew. Rendering chew flick in the anatomy of fur and smile. Corporeal peppercorn shreds the rind into ice chips. Sheds crab apple ramblers around their navel. Glazed captioning of unrepaired corrugation. Plots its surface art. In traffic approaching plane. A little earth pushes up. A little plant life also. An end keeps coming or a series of endings never resolves. 3 cranes wear time down to the bones of the road. It will all go to good use. So the way that I started breaking open the narrative was to begin to focus on a central image. And as I've revised the poem, some of the central images have taken a back burner to some other things happening in the poem. But the initial response was to think about what's my central image and then figure out what's the true north for that image. So if my central image is traffic, then the true north of that traffic might be being stopped motion. And then I got to think like, well, what's the opposite of that stopped motion? Or what's south of the stopped motion? And it might be something more stable like the bones of the road. And then the fun part was to begin to see what might intersect that area of a compass with traffic, stopped motion, and bones of the road. So I'll just do a few more pages and then say goodbye. A story told from one eye to the next turns its contents away. Objects may appear bluer, straighten the splash, west into skin. The work river easing the work fur must do to keep close to a rear view rhythm, little parachute of talons, kept the fall secret inside a natural pink bridge, tailing rubber ball of breath, the way leather feels a crack in concrete, where wood sorrel stem still feels new or needed, plutonium sharp, to the soil tunneling into breath. Above in space or below, sparrow chases crow again. Meadow mice lick and bite, sculpting ice into shape. A field overflowing, gutters cling to safe smoke. Pull away from the foundational rigor. The breaths of winter wood build frost inside the whisper. A curious yelp. Wind shower of night holds steady, this rudder breaking open, the would-be water giving birth to a new satellite. So before I leave completely, I just want to do a little plug for Concision Poetry Journal. New issue was just released last week and submissions are open until December 15th. If people are writing experimental work, you're playing with narrative, you're breaking things open, send me what you've got. Thank you.
Thank you, Haley. Very cool. I would like to read a poem by E. E. Cummings. All in green went my love riding on a great horse of gold into the silver dawn. 4 lean hounds crouched low and smiling. The merry deer ran before. Fleeter be they than dappled dreams, the sweet, swift deer, the red, rare deer. 4 red roebuck of a white water, the crew bugle sang before. Hornet hip went my love riding, riding the echo down into the silver dawn. 4 lean hounds crouched low and smiling, the level meadows ran before. Softer be they than slippered sleep, the lean-lipped deer, the fleet-boned deer. 4 fleet does at a gold valley, the famished arrow sang before. Bow at belt went my love riding, riding the mountain down into the silver dawn. 4 lean hounds crouched low and smiling, the sheer peaks ran before. Paler be they than daunting death, the sleek, slim deer, the tall, tense deer. 4 tall stags at a green mountain, the lucky hunter sang before. All in green went my love riding on a great horse of gold into the silver dawn. 4 lean hounds crouched low and smiling. My heart felt dead before. I'd like to thank all the readers tonight. Thank Valerie Lockhart and the Minneapolis Television Network. Thank everybody for tuning in. Our next reading plans to be February 4th. Everybody have a great holiday season. Goodbye.